Are you looking for a way to make a real difference in mental health? Thank You Life is here to help. They are a nonprofit dedicated to making evidence-based mental health therapies accessible to those who need it most. At Thank You Life, they provide financial assistance for ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, helping individuals struggling with treatment-resistant depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Their mission is to eliminate financial barriers to these life-changing treatments and ensure everyone has the opportunity to heal. And the results speak for themselves. Their data shows that the average beneficiary experiences a 55% reduction in symptoms, which is on par with the broader ketamine research that we see. If you're in private practice or own a business and want to learn more about how you can help your local community, connect with them today, thankyoulife.org, or email them at partnerships@thankyoulife.org. Again, that's thankyoulife.org, or email them partnerships@thankyoulife.org. Thank You Life, healing through accessibility. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1042. Welcome, everybody. So excited to have you here today with our group practice panel. We're getting started in just a moment here. Really excited to have you here and our panelists here as well. We're just going to make sure everything's going like it's supposed to, looks like it is. So welcome. I'm Joe Sanok. I founded Practice of the Practice back in 2012. Back in 2012, I had a small side gig counseling practice called Mental Wellness Counseling. I had started it seriously just to pay off student loan debt. I was thinking if I can make an extra $1,000 a month, then maybe I can be able to, pay this down a little bit faster. And so got that going and was supervising somebody that then, he said, "Hey, can I work with you?" Cause I was just his clinical supervisor. I'm like, I have no idea. So I had a friend who was an accountant and he said, "Oh yeah, you could do this 1099 instead of W-2." And I was like, okay, that sounds good. I literally just had no idea what I was doing. And just luckily had a couple friends that gave me little pieces of advice and just proceeded until apprehended. Well, in 2019, I sold mental wellness counseling to one of my therapists, Nicole Ball. At that time we had 13 clinicians, entirely private pay. And then now she has 3 locations. She has taken it to levels that I had no desire to work on. I just loved doing this podcasting stuff. So I started the podcast in 2013, really to just learn as I was growing my practice. And over time, developed into quite a consultant and helping people grow their practices in a variety of different ways. So now I get to do that. I have a podcast that gets about 70,000 listens per month. I've written a couple books. One comes out in May through Harvard Business Review. It's going to be in airports and all over the place. So that's pretty exciting. I'm also a dad. So we have our panel. We originally planned on having 3 people. Heidi got called into court yesterday for a client issue. And so wanted to introduce our panel. Let me pull up their bios. Don't want to miss any of the major things here. So we have Sherry Merriman, who has 20 years of experience in private practice management and healthcare administration. She's founded 2 group practice collectives, Iridescent Care Collaborative, her Dream Clinic, which gives providers both community and autonomy so independent practitioners can live their dreams within a supportive setting. And then also, we have Elizabeth Oldham. Elizabeth is the co-owner and founder and COO of Transform and Renew PLLC. She and her business partner, Amy Rhodes, founded Transform and Renew in 2022 with the goal of reaching more clients while making a difference in the lives of their clients. Now, there's a lot more I could have read there. And we are going to bring these 2 panelists on to the spotlight. So let me add your spotlights here. Awesome. Welcome, Sherry and Elizabeth. Sherry, let's start with you. Why'd you start a group practice? Tell us a little bit more about your practice and why you got it going.
I started a group practice because, hello, everyone, by the way. I started a group practice because I had a lot of experience in running clinics and in medical education and healthcare administration before I became a therapist. So I knew how those kinds of places ran, at least a little bit. And then once I became a therapist and started working for other people's group practices, I mean, frankly, I thought, well, I can do at least as well as this, probably better. Like probably a lot of us have that kind of experience. And I worked in some okay environments and I worked in some fairly toxic environments. And also, I'm the kind of person I prefer a lot of autonomy. I don't like people telling me how to decorate my office or what kind of hours to work or what kind of clients to see. And I wanted to create the kind of space where other people would have that option as well, but yet still be able to like live their dream of working in a private practice, like group environment. And so I wanted to create an environment where people could have like the best of both worlds.
So awesome. Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about you starting a practice. So you're in a partnership with it.
Yeah.
Tell me about how you guys decided on that. How did that launch? Some people do that, some people don't. So tell us a little bit about your group practice journey.
Yeah, it was really out of necessity. My business partner actually was subleasing from me, and towards the as things started slowing down with COVID, we were just overwhelmed. We still had so many requests, and we both had huge wait lists for people who wanted to come see us. So we started talking about, well, how can we do this better? How can we get more people helped? We're in one of the fastest growing cities in the United States, and the need is huge. And so after several great conversations, we decided to partner together and really use our different skill sets and our different talents to do a better job with the group practice.
Such a great intro with the two of you. So welcome everyone that's here. If you have questions that are just quick questions, just drop those in the chat. And we'll answer those. This is a panel. So if questions don't come in, I'm just going to follow my curiosity and ask these ladies some questions about their lives and about their group practice and how that looked. If you ask questions, usually what happens is it's a little slow at the beginning, then we get to the end and we can't get to all of them. So please make sure you're dropping those questions in. Also, if you have a question that might need a little back and forth, just virtually raise your hand. At the bottom, you'll see reactions. Just do raise your hand. That'll tell us that you're willing to ask your question and have your audio turned on and maybe your video. So you don't have to turn your video on, but we will bring you up with the panelists just to ask that question. So maybe you want to dig in a little bit. Maybe you want some just like, how would you think through this situation? This is a chance to pick the brains of some group practice owners. Now, Sherry, your practice has a very clear niche in a lot of ways. And I would love for you to talk about that niche, how you decided on that niche, and just how that's helped you grow the practice faster.
Oh, yeah, that's been a lot of fun, actually. So I've been a therapist for 15 years. And from the beginning, I have worked with what I like to call misfits and sensitives. So people who don't fit into your standard mainstream society. And so I work with a lot of outsiders, kinky folk, poly folk, science fiction geeks and nerds, people who consider themselves sensitives or psychics, activists, also slightly more mainstream, like healthcare providers, but people who just maybe would have a hard time feeling like they might fit in with like your average standard therapist. I was coloring my hair long before it was like fashionable or more mainstream. And so they would see me with my, pink or purple or blue hair and go, that's my therapist. And
I had
so
leopard print hair in college and had blue hair. My friends called me Madonna because I changed it so much. So I get it.
nice, exactly. And so I have an ability to put those kinds of clients at ease, very quickly. And so word started getting out in our community. And so I was able to build up my practice really quickly. And I was able to find group practices to work at that were supportive of that, and then network with colleagues who were also interested in those niches. And so that's what we really specialize in at our location is making sure that those folks know that you have a place here.
One question we got on Tuesday in the Start a Group Practice panel, and some of the other ones, this has come up a few times, is oftentimes you start with a vision for the practice yourself. And then at some point you kind of got to decide, do I stay only in that niche, or is that something that I have individual clinicians that are kind of known for that superpower? And so I think the example was there was someone that had an eating disorder clinic and they were really well known for that, but then they were getting referrals for anxiety and other things. And she was like, should we stay like this eating disorder clinic or should we broaden? How have you thought through as you've grown your group practice, how to keep the DNA of that kind of misfits, that compared to like, if there's other clinicians you may want to bring in that maybe don't fit that, like just how do you keep that DNA? How do you think through niching, all of that?
That's a great question. I think I've been thinking of it sort of like on the macro level of like the micro level of my own niche. Like maybe these are the people to whom I market, but you're going to pull in other people who maybe don't exactly fit within the little boxes that you've defined in yourself. But if they come in the door and you hear their story and you think, okay, well, that sounds like fun. That sounds like something that I'm totally competent at and would love to work with. I think when those therapists come with those sort of broader interests and show up and say, hey, I'd love to work here. I love what you're building. Your specialties may not be my specialties, but I'm still going to have something to contribute at consult. And I'd still love to hear what you want to talk about at consult. Then that sounds great. Like we've had several therapists join the practice who come in the door saying, I don't know anything about these specialties that you're talking about, but I'm open-minded. I'd love to learn more. And then I can handle the folks who come in the door who maybe have these like adjacent things or very different things. And that's been really nice because then we've been able to handle more like family groups and do more collaborative care.
Mm.
And so we've been able to take care of those kinds of things by spreading out a little bit. So we're not super general broad. We still have very much a defined niche, but we can cover most things that come in the door.
Okay. Awesome. That, I think one thing we often talk about in group practice, boss, is people will assume that a specialist can be a generalist, but they won't assume a generalist will be a specialist. And it sounds like that's really what you're digging into there. Elizabeth, would love to hear a little bit about, as you think about like those early stages of starting a group practice, like what do you wish you had known? What just, what did you do? What do you wish you hadn't done or wish you had done early on in those first, say, 6 months?
There's a lot of questions there.
Yeah.
In the first 6 months, I think the things we did well was we figured out our talents, read the Profit First book right away. There's actually a Profit First book for therapists now, which I'm starting to dig into, which, is helpful. Absorbed, your podcast, any other podcast, anything that was out there for people who had been through it before. We really tried to absorb those things so we at least knew where to start. Things we did poorly in my mind is our first 1099 person that we brought on. We were just overwhelmed. We just wanted someone, just pretty much. And we thought the person was going to be a good fit, and they weren't. And they weren't sort of the kind of people that we are. Like they weren't very motivated. They weren't very tech savvy. And it just was a bad fit. So that was something that we did poorly. And then the other thing we did poorly is we picked the wrong person to help us with our credentialing. And so we got some misinformation from that person. It cost us a couple $1,000s. So we won't make that mistake again.
Yeah.
Other things we did well is we looked at, like, since we are an insurance-based practice, is like what are the big insurance companies that are here? What are their big organizations? What insurance do they have? To really make sure we weren't wasting our time and wasting our money credentialing with companies that we weren't even going to get anybody.
Awesome. All right. So Ryan just raised his hand. I'm going to ask Ryan to unmute and, if possible, start video, and then we will bring Ryan on up here. What's up, Ryan?
Good morning, y'all. It's a little crazy. I'm making breakfast for my 2 under 3 right now, so apologize for any of the robots and Pegasus toys. So I'm in this interesting spot where I've transitioned solo practice into a group practice. I have 1 associate. I have 2 more associates who are interested. And the direction I want to go, I'm kind of burned out on the therapy bit. I've been doing therapy now for 7 years. I love the coaching. I love the clinical coaching, the mentoring, the supervision part. And so I'm trying to noodle out, how do I build a practice that gives my associates enough agency and autonomy to do what they want to do? And then we really are going to focus on the self of the therapist and how do you enter into this work in meaningful ways. I've kind of niched myself in this generalized area of, hey, give me your hardest clients. And so all of my colleagues in the area, I started in a community mental health area. Um, and so all of my colleagues in private practice, when I went into private practice, just gave me all of their hardest clients. And I'm wondering, pros and cons, we touched on this a little bit, with you sharing in your answer, pros and cons of expanding my niche out to just really allow my incoming clinicians to market for whomever they really want to work with and allowing them to guide into that, as opposed to continuing to keep like website and marketing material directed towards what I've been doing and then allow them to be complementary. Essentially, do I change my website? Do I change how we kind of work the SEO algorithm, all of that fun stuff? I would love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, awesome. How would you two think through that?
So I'm wondering, Ryan, is there a theme or a niche that your staff, like your associates have that's different or more complementary to yours?
Not necessarily, no. The guy that I currently have, he's really great, and he's stepping into the field kind of just with open hands. What do I want to do? Where do I want to go? We do a lot of work with couples, and he's wanting to get his feet wet in that. Here you go, buddy. And then the other gentleman who's getting ready to hop on board wants to also work with couples. So I think I'll keep that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
So it sounds like they both have couples.
Yes, both have couples. However, one of the guys, I do a lot of work with men. One of the guys, because of some of his story, he's got a lot of pain with men around his dad. And so he has this, he's eager to try some new things, but he kind of has this holdback. And my website, I tried to really niche into the men demographic because I'm in an area, you throw a dart in any direction, you're going to hit 30 therapists. There's not a lot of therapists who will work specifically with men and are geared towards that. So I found a lot of success doing that. There are parts of that that make him a little bit uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is too strong a word. He's just nervous, right? To jump into that. So wondering, okay, hey, do I revamp my website? Do I kind of expand this to more inclusive male and female type of marketing content to make him feel a little bit more comfortable? Pros and cons. Does that help guide that?
Mm-hmm. One quick thought that I have on that. I remember I had a clinician that was coming in and she didn't like the office that we had. We had a one office suite. There's 4 of us. We were sharing it. And I let her come with me to look at all the offices to make sure she was happy. And she didn't even have clients yet. And then we upgraded to this 4 office suite. It was more expensive than my mortgage. Beautiful office, view of the water. And 3 months later, she said, this just doesn't make sense for me. I'm gonna just go do my own thing for you to take a percentage. So I would just caution anybody, don't make business decisions based on trying to keep or please people that are in your business. If they aren't a fit, they're not a fit. That doesn't mean they're bad at therapy, but if you can't see half the population because of your own trauma with your dad, that's probably some work that you need to go do before you start working with anybody, because it may be couples, it may be men. So that was one thing that came up right away, was that story about that person, me literally signing a mortgage for a rent for 5 years at a massive loss. So, at least initially, but anyway, ended up hiring 13 people though. So yeah.
I was thinking something similar. Like, I would want you to be guided by your own instincts, Brian, and not by those of your associates.
Yeah, if it's working, I say keep going with that. Elizabeth, how would you think through that situation that Ryan brought up for us?
We're actually sort of working towards that. So we're trying to fill in our gaps. So, for example, I don't like to work with couples. Um, I don't like to work with kids. But those are areas that, that other people are passionate about. So we're actually trying to fill those gaps with the people that we bring in, people that specifically want to work with couples or want to work with children. And that's how we're marketing. And our website talks about each individual person and as we add someone that has that different skill set, then we advertise it and we blast it out on Facebook and social media that, hey, we're now serving kids, or we're now serving couples, or we now have weekend appointments, whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm.
I love that the two of you have very distinct ways of thinking about this. That Sherry's definitely more in the, we want to really help these misfits and have that niche, and then it kind of expands out from there. Whereas you're saying, each individual kind of has their own superpowers within this collective. Neither one is right. I think looking at your market, what's working, and then you as the person running this, what do you want? So, Ryan, if more comes up for you, definitely raise your hand again. Thanks for being the first one to kick that off for us. We have a question that came in the chat, and then we're going to go to Shay, who has their hand raised. So my question is, how did you go about building your leadership team? I have a small group teaching practice with the idea of transitioning interns to associates to licensed clinicians. My hope is that my licensed clinicians can take on more leadership roles. But what I'm recognizing is that not every licensed clinician is prepared for leadership or want to step into those roles. Should I be looking to hire externally or ... Question mark. What a nice cliffhanger there on that question. All right.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, let's start with you on this one.
Oh, that's a great question. Again, so my business partner and I looked at our talents, and that's how we made those two decisions. And then, we look for people. We have three things we look for: hungry, humble, and tech savvy. Those are our three big things that we need from you to be. Because, if you're humble, you're teachable. If you're hungry, you're going to work hard. And obviously tech savvy is just, we all need to be that nowadays. But for leadership, we just have looked for people that have that. They have that hunger to know more, to grow, to understand. So we have an associate, and we are an associate-based practice, basically. And one of our associates is very hungry, but humble, wants to learn, wants to help, just dives in. She's pretty self-driven. And so those are the kinds of things that we have looked for leadership. And we will be bringing her up as one of our leaders. Mm-hmm. Hope that helps.
Yeah. Sherry, how do you think through that?
This is something, a little plug that I found a group practice leader and group practice boss really helpful for, because when I started that program with Joe and his staff, I didn't have any support at the time, and man, did I need it. And so I found their guidance and encouragement and accountability, frankly, super helpful. And I had a fully licensed clinician working at my location who had been one of my supervisees at a previous site. She followed me when I opened the group, and she had made it clear that her dream was to run her own group practice someday. And she had demonstrated a lot of get up and go, a lot of initiative, a lot of skills. And so I approached her and said, I know you want to do this someday. How about sort of a mentorship, internship, group practice leader gig where I take you under my wing, teach you everything I possibly can, frankly, underpay you to help me run this place while I try to expand what we're doing here. And she leapt at the opportunity. And so now I just try to show her everything that I can and explain to her, I CC her on every email I send and try to explain to her every little thing. And I love that, because then I'm mentoring her on her, next level dream. Mm-hmm. And it's great experience for her. And she is killer at everything I hand her. And it's a delight to shovel shit, frankly, off to her that I do not have time for. And I'm getting so much more done thanks to that. And so really what worked for me was just watching and listening for people who showed those skills and for people who expressed that interest. Another way that I got that kind of support was going to our local university. And this wasn't so much a leadership thing as an admin thing, but I'll kind of throw it in, like in our first year, I knew I needed some support. So I went to our local university's undergraduate psychology program, and I got an intern from there, which was super helpful. And, this was someone who was thinking about going to grad school in counseling psychology. And I was able to, again, mentor and teach and get some great support from somebody who understands social media a lot better than I do. So it was a huge help.
That's awesome. I put in the chat that every year we ask 3 questions from our staff. And the first is, what are you doing that you love? And this is admin, this is, consultants. And it's become such a part of our DNA that really it's a conversation that's not just like once a year. So if people are feeling things shifting, they just let me know. Second is, what do you want removed from your plate? So maybe as a consultant, you used to love doing HR stuff with people, and now it just drives you crazy. In the same way you might have clinicians that used to love couples work, but they're burned out from it. Like, we want to know that, because, you're not going to be a good therapist if you hate that type of client. And then third, where are you growing and need training or opportunities? And so we've had people that say, I'd really like to get into video, or I'd like to learn more about operations. Sam, our chief operations officer, started as a conference planner for Slowdown School that was hired for just 2 months to help with that event. And then she moved into helping with podcasting. And then she handed that off because she was sick of it to Naranda, who was doing social media, and she moved into podcasting. And then she had to go get training on how to run operations and learn how to use Asana and run a team. And so when you find those people, I wouldn't jump from, hey, you're a clinician, to now, be a whole clinical director. Take some steps to say, okay, let's look at all the elements of a clinical director, give them a few areas of responsibility, see where that's working, talk about what compensation looks like, and then say, okay, now we're going to level you up in a few different areas. And then maybe within 6 months, we can have you at a clinical director level. Also, one thing that I always do with my consulting clients, it's often one of our very first exercises, is just the love-hate list. So you, as the owner, what do you love doing? Just make a list of all that stuff. What do you hate doing? Is it the billing? Is it checking in on people? Is it, when people haven't done their progress notes in 24 hours, like you're on their case? Like, those are all opportunities to say, what, we could have our admin follow up with anyone that is at 25 hours overdue for their progress notes. And if someone's, 36, 48 hours, the owner is going to get notified. You don't want that. That's a ding. And so figuring out those automations of what you hate. But then what most people miss is on their love list, looking at, should you be doing that? So I love writing a 2,000 word blog post every single month. Are those 2,000 word blog posts like actually bringing in clients? Is it actually helping your SEO? Are we tracking that? And if not, maybe join a writing club and just go have fun writing in a writing club rather than doing these 2,000 word blog posts. So even looking at the things that you love, saying, is this giving me an ROI on that time within my business? Because I could be doing that thing I love, just not for the business. Do you often find yourself overwhelmed by the influx of client calls you receive? Receptionists are expensive, but you can't afford to let your patients go to voicemail. You care for your clients, so you try to phone them back, but more often than not, it's too late. They've gone to another practice. When you partner with Well Received, you capture every opportunity. Your calls are answered by professional medical receptionists 24/7, and they can support you with more than just message taking. They offer new patient intake, after-hours service, bilingual services, medical appointment scheduling, medical live chat, and so much more. All this at a fraction of the cost of an in-house receptionist. Your patients are Well Received's priority. As a Practice of the Practice listener, you can get an exclusive 50% off your first 2 months of service. Head on over to wellreceived.com/Joe to start growing your practice today. Shay, let's bring you on for your question, and then we'll jump over to the questions coming in the chat. Thanks for those questions coming in. Going to bring Shay on. Hey, Shay.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Hi, Shay.
Welcome. Glad you're here. Thanks for coming to so many of these.
Thank you. And I appreciate you putting this on for the Level Up. The last time I saw you, we were at Killing It Camp in Colorado.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So my
right
question,
before the world shut down.
Yes, right after. When Elizabeth spoke, I actually had the same experience with my 1099. And it kind of stifled me after. So coming back in to try to do it the right way, if you will, or, How did you get through that? What did you do different to regroup and continue to move forward?
Absolutely. So we redefined again what we were sort of looking for. The person that we had brought in initially was retired military and was sort of just working part time. And we thought because of his age that he would just sort of be a perfect fit, someone who still wanted to counsel but didn't want to do the business stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that he didn't want to do anything actually. It was bad. Luckily, he left without us having to sort of force him. I mean, it was coming to a head anyway. So, but he just pulled the lever first, which was good. And so we really sat down and revamped our questions for interviews and then what we were looking for. So that's where we came up with the hungry, humble, and tech savvy. Those are the three things that we look for because those take care of all the rest of it, really. If someone is hungry and humble, they're easy to work with and they want to work hard and so that helped. And then we have just really been very blessed because we have, and I think it's because in Texas there is a shortage of supervisors. So we just constantly have associates and students reaching out to us that need supervision. And so we just started asking them, okay, do you just want supervision or are you looking for a site? And if they are also looking for a site, and just in that initial conversation on the phone, if it's a good conversation, then we bring them in and we interview them. And so that's how we have gotten our staff. We actually are on hold right now because we're just so full. So we are waiting on. I have 3 people that I have to call back this week to say, sorry, we're not offering any more sites, but I can still do your supervision if you like. Okay. So yeah, but it's been great. So I think drilling down to what you really want and then making sure your questions fit that.
Okay.
What's an example of a question in an interview that you ask that's around one of those 3 characteristics?
We ask about like self-motivation. Tell us about self-motivation, your experience with self-motivation. We ask what's their therapist superpower. Sort of all of that from you. Let's see, what else do we ask? Those are a couple that, drill down. And we do ask about technology and their experience with electronic health records. So like this associate that's a go-getter, she used to work at a chiropractic office. So she's familiar with how all of that works and sort of how claims works and that kind of stuff, which is a real benefit. So we drill down with those kinds of questions.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Sherry, what can you add to that?
Gosh, I'm trying to think if I've been in that situation before. The closest I've come is that before I opened Iridescent, this was back before the pandemic. I co-owned a group practice. And that was not a great setup. I learned a valuable lesson of don't go into a business partnership with business partners that you don't know very well and have no reason yet to trust very much. And you don't have a very strong relationship with. These were in some ways really good people and in some ways not great people for me to be in a business relationship with. And the only way I was able to recover from that eventually, unfortunately, was to leave. So it was a very different situation though. So I'm trying to think if I have a good example of like a time when I had to, I haven't actually hired many folks. My situation is a little different. And I saw that some folks had, questions about like W-2 versus 1099. And my situation is a different setup in that I only have one 1099 and that's my admin mentee person. Everybody else at my practice are members. It's set up as a membership. So they pay me a membership fee in order to get access to all the group practice amenities, including space and consultation and all of that, instead of me paying them as a 1099 or a W-2. And I set it up intentionally that way so that I wouldn't be their boss or their employer or somebody who had to tell them how to do their practice that's part of my model of like, I wanted to create that best of both worlds scenario of autonomy and support. And we're 2 years in, we're seeing how it works. One of my challenges when I joined Joe's programs was to figure out how to make it work in a very like financially rewarding kind of way, because it's a very different model, and so it hasn't been tested a lot out there. And so we're working on that. And
Next thing you know, you'll
but
be a
yeah,
consultant teaching people how to do that membership
yeah,
model. That's
yeah,
great.
that's
There
the
you go.
goal.
Hey, thank you so much for your question. I really appreciate that. One thing that comes to mind for me too, I've had some bad hires too. Similar to if you have a friendship fall apart or, a relationship, not that you need to jump right into a new relationship, but when you have a emotionally intelligent relationship or a friend that does have your back, kind of the best way to recover oftentimes is to realize that you can have better relationships. And so hiring again, getting good people in there, seeing what that's like. Also I think that normalizing it, like when statistically, you're going to have some really shitty hires. You're going to have people that aren't a fit. You do your best on the front end, things fall apart, you learn from it, and then you move on. And so I think that when you normalize it, it's like, yeah, this is part of running a business. And so if you then get really gun shy and worried and stop, like that person has even more power now. And so I would say just push into it more. We have a bunch of questions coming in now. This is what always happens. So we're going to do one more. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about Group Practice Boss because you both have referenced that. And then we're going to dive into the rest of the questions. At what point do you need, all caps, a leadership team? How do you know when to implement your first leadership role? Sherry, why don't you kick this one off for us?
Well, as far depending on what we mean by leadership team, as far as like my admin lead that I have right now, or any kind of admin support, I would say like the minute you open doors or decide to open doors in your group practice, because one thing I've learned from Joe and other coaches is that when you go from being a solo practitioner to a group practice, you have to stop thinking small and bootstrapping. You have to be able to hand off a lot of these tasks. Yesterday, I asked my helper to order sugars. I can't be the person ordering sugars for the clinic anymore. Somebody else has to order the sugar. And in the beginning, I was trying to do all that myself, and it was a waste of my time. As far as other leadership team roles, I don't have a good answer for that. Elizabeth probably does better than me.
Yeah. I don't know that I do, but I agree with you, right? I mean, you have to sort of look at your return on investment. If you're spending a bunch of money calling, returning phone calls and that kind of stuff and not working on your growth or even seeing your clients, because my business partner and I both still see clients, then you're not making good use of your time.
Mm-hmm.
So having go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I think definitely if you didn't watch Ash's presentation on how to get out of the day-to-day yesterday, that recording, it'll be live in a week or so. We're going to clean them up a little bit. Was really good. I think one of the things is to decide how involved you want to be. If you really want to be a silent owner, you don't want to be operator, you don't want to be the clinician, those are really the three roles. You have owner, you're just taking the money, you started a business, you're not really doing much else other than taking on the risk of the business. There's the operator, so you can be an owner operator that doesn't do clinical. You could do clinical owner, where you're doing clinical work still, maybe clinical supervision and you're the owner, but then you have someone that does the operations, or you can do all three. So deciding for yourself which of those three things you want. And then if you're paying someone else for that, you're going to be paying them, for operations. So anywhere 40 to 75 bucks an hour, which if you're billing out 200, that's great, because, to have someone that really knows what they're doing and operating the business beyond just those things, or having a clinical director that does supervision when you want to be out expanding the business. I think it's really figuring those things out. And then, typically when you have 3 staff or so, like you definitely can start to look at offloading one of those if that's what you want. Next question is, how did you make the decision to be a self-pay or insurance pay practice? Do you now, or have you tried to accept both forms of payment? Let's go to Elizabeth first.
We accept both, but we're mainly an insurance-based practice. San Antonio is a large city, but we are not a very wealthy city. And so private pay only is really difficult. You're not going to get a lot of that. Even with associates that offer lower cost and things like that, it's still very, very difficult in San Antonio. So you almost have to be an insurance-based practice. Yeah. So that was our decision.
All right. Yeah. Sherry, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, here in Minneapolis, it's kind of the opposite. Since the pandemic, there's been quite a shortage of providers. Mm-hmm. And so it's been a lot easier to get a private pay practice off the ground. And so we do it by provider. Like each provider gets to decide, since we're a membership and not employees, each provider gets to decide if they're private pay only, what they want to set their rates at, which insurances they want to take, if any. And what's great about that is then if someone contacts me through their website and wants to take it, needs to use their insurance or is willing to do, then I can assign them to providers based on what their capabilities or interests are, including payment wise. And I really like that we can offer both, as far as like to our providers and also to potential clients.
So awesome. I just put in the chat also a link to Mentaya. Mentaya is one of our sponsors, but they're awesome. They help collect full pay out of network and usually collect 70 to 80% of whatever your full pay is and give that to the client. So the client's really paying about the same as what they would pay with insurance. So that's something worth checking out. So let's do this one for Elizabeth. So are your staff 1099 or W-2, and how did you make that decision?
They are 1099. We're in a state that's pretty easy to do. We felt like that was a good way to start, and that's how most counseling centers in San Antonio work. We are considering, however, changing to a W-2.
Yeah. Well, Andrew definitely can help you with that, because he's actually, we haven't announced this publicly. We're going to be doing this thing starting in, I gotta see when the podcast launches. I think it's like mid-June. Happy to give it to you early, where it's a consulting package around that 1099 to W-2. And then those people are going to actually be also in a small group that Andrew leads once a month. So you all meet each other and talk through that as well. So if you're looking at that, let me know. I can connect you with Andrew.
Absolutely.
The next question: if one hires an employee, then doesn't the business owner have to pay them unemployment if employee is fired? How to navigate this? That doesn't happen with a 1099, but we're talking about eventually hiring employees so that they're skilled and incentive to stay. So since both of you don't have W-2s, I'm going to speak to this for one. I'm not an accountant or attorney. I'm speaking from my own knowledge of this subject. So obviously do your own research. In most states, yes, that is the case, that you have to pay unemployment. Sometimes you're paying into, in your state, unemployment insurance. There's other ways that you can look at that if you're talking to an attorney. That's why I always recommend, if you're a group practice owner, whether you're doing 1099s or W-2s or a membership model, that you do have a good employment law attorney, because things can shift quickly. I remember in California when there was a court ruling, I think it was when Uber and Lyft were kind of said you were treating these 1099s like W-2s, they had to pay all this money. Then all of a sudden, like, everything switched in California within a month, where basically if you were a 1099 based counseling practice, like, you were going to get in trouble. And so that's where having a good employment law attorney is really important. But yeah, there's lots of ways that you're setting aside money for that you're planning for that. Next question: what needs to be considered when deciding whether or not to offer clinical supervision to a provisionally licensed contract worker or even a W-2 employee? I do know some things that my attorney taught me on that. So for 1099s, like a contractor, one thing the IRS does look at is, are you providing supervision? So at least in my practice, where we had 1099s, those 1099s were required to get supervision outside of that contract. And so a lot of them did it with me, but they had to pay for that clinical supervision just like anyone else. So that's one way that I personally, like, legally protected myself and had a wall between clinical supervision and the 1099 relationship. But would love to know how the two of you think through it. Sherry, since you have the membership model, you don't have to really worry about that. Elizabeth, how do you think through clinical supervision with your practice?
Yeah, so we do that. And in Texas, we talked to both our employment lawyer and our CPA. And they just asked us some questions about, what does that supervision entail, right? Yeah. And it's clinical supervision. I'm not telling them when their appointments are, any of those things. I'm not telling them what they wear to work. I'm not, none of that stuff. So in that, our CPA felt that we were safe having them as 1099s, even though their associates in Texas are called associates. But we do have two separate contracts. So they have a contract for their 1099 stuff, and they have a separate contract for their supervision.
Perfect. A question for you, Elizabeth: how does insurance reimbursement work when you have provisionally licensed staff? Have there been any difficulties with this process?
So in Texas, starting last year, they started allowing for supervisory billing, and then it depends on the insurance company. So some insurance companies do allow supervisory billing, and some don't. So in Texas, Aetna allows it, Blue Cross allows it, and Cigna allows it. These are the ones that I know about. United does not. Magellan does not. In fact, it's specifically in my contract that we cannot do supervisory billing. And I'm thinking of there's someone else that doesn't as well. Anyway, so when you file the claim, the claim actually looks like it's you. It looks like it's the supervisor. And the supervisor does have to be sort of in the building. They have to be supervising. So in that sense.
Yeah. So it really is state to state specific. This is where I do think that working with a billing specialist, that's 6% on collected claims to me is so worth it, because then they're putting in that time to make the phone calls to make sure things are approved. And, you know, you're paying 6% off the top of what's collected typically for a good insurance biller. So they should be able to say, here's exactly, because they know that inside and out, rather than you becoming an insurance billing specialist. Sherry, do you have any resources about the membership model you've created? We have a question about that.
You can find a brief description of it at our website, iridescentcare.com. That's for Iridescent Care Collaborative. And if anyone wants to reach out to me and learn more about it, they're welcome to do so. You can do that through the web form at our website. I know iridescent isn't easy to spell, so I wore my t-shirt, Iridescent Care Collaborative.
Wonderful. Oh, cool. We have Corey joined Group Practice Boss yesterday. Awesome. And let's see, Donna's thinking about signing up for Group Practice launch. Wonderful, Donna. If you're on the fence still next week, make sure you come to one of my Q&As, and then we can make sure that it's a good fit for you, or sign up and then we can kind of talk next week as well. Awesome. Well, that's all the questions. We tore through it all. Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Sherry, for being a part of this community, for digging in so much and supporting each other. One question people often ask is how much time it takes to be involved in Group Practice Boss. And I want to ask the two of you that in a second. But one thing we say is the 3-2-1. So 3 times a month, we think that you should be in circle, asking questions, supporting people, just getting involved. Because if you don't have 3 questions a month, then like, why are you paying for a community? I think we all have 3 questions a month we could be putting in there. 2 times a month coming to a live event. So that could be an Ask the Expert. That could be one of the trainings every Tuesday. You have plenty of access to all those different things. And then once a month going through one of the courses. So we call it the 3-2-1. I would say from what I hear, about 1 to 2 hours a week in Group Practice Boss will be more than enough, but it's the right 1 or 2 hours instead of then guessing all these different things. Sherry and Elizabeth, how much time would you say you recommend people put into Group Practice Boss to get the most out of their membership?
Yeah, that's about the time that that's about the amount of time I put in. I try and make every Tuesday meeting, I try and make that live, if at all possible, and then pick up various things throughout the month as well.
Yeah, I agree. And you definitely get out of it what you put into it. And I've tried to cherry pick like recordings. If I don't make something, then I try to watch the video later. Those are really helpful. And the community is great. You can ask anything.
Awesome. Yep. Thank you so much for being a part of the community. In just half an hour here, we have our next thing that we're going to be doing. So we've covered a lot this week, a total of 14 webinars. We're talking at 11:30 Eastern about operations you must master. So I'm going to be leading that. We're talking all sorts of things around pay-per-click, directories, marketing, networking, managing your money, how I think through quarter by quarter and leveling up your practice. So that's going to be at 11:30 Eastern. Then we have a little bit of a break. Because in the middle there, we have our weekly Group Practice launch meeting, which we aren't going to make public, and wanted to make sure that those folks could come to Everything Level Up Week. And so then 2:30 Eastern is our next one that's growing by 100% in the next year. So how do you double in the next year? So we're going to be talking through all sorts of strategies around that. And then next week, we have all of those Q&As with me. It's literally a Zoom meeting where you pop in, just like, here's where I'm at. What do you think? Should I join the community? It's not a hard sell. We honestly have more than enough people that are applying to be in our programs, to be working with us with consulting. We want it to be the very best fit for you. So come have a conversation with me. We'll chat through all the different things. And thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you all have a great day. Panelists, thank you so much for being here today. Bye, everybody. Also, we could not do this show without our amazing sponsors, and we've had a bunch of people join Well Received. So if you are overwhelmed by all of the clients that are calling you and you're just like, I don't know if I should hire a receptionist or not, getting a virtual assistant company like Well Received is the way to go. They can handle your new patient intakes, your after-hours services, bilingual. They're 24/7. They do the medical appointment scheduling, all the things we talked about around sales. They are experts in, and you can get the first 3 months at 50% off when you head on over to wellreceived.com/Joe. Again, that's wellreceived.com/Joe. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.